Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's IG Live, Ask the Experts. It feels like a while since we've been live, and today we're going to be joined by Erin and Stephen Mitchell. Erin and Stephen are authors of Too Tired to Fight, 13 Essential Conflicts for Parents 13 essential conflicts parents must have to keep their relationship strong. I read their book this week. I just did an interview with them on the podcast, and it was fantastic for helping couples navigate conflict, which is not only is it inevitable, but essential when you are parenting kids. Really, it's just going to come up. Things are going to come up, and they give excellent tools and skills that we can all use to navigate through these conflicts. They are co-founders of Couples Counseling for Parents, a company focused on providing access to research-informed, psychologically sound online education for couples. Stephen has a PhD in medical family therapy, and Erin has a master's degree in counseling psychology. So today we are going to go through your questions, any questions you have about parenting, co-parenting, and the challenges that can arise between couples or co-parents. And hopefully we'll have them answer your questions today. So thank you for joining us. I'm going to wait for them to ask to join the chat, and then we're going to get going. In the meantime, tell me where you are joining from. And I think, Erin, you've joined with your personal account. Hi, Kristen. Hi, sweetheart. I also wanted to let you know that we only have, I believe it's 12 tickets left for our full weekend of In Bloom in Vancouver, coming up April 2nd, 3rd, 4th. And that's only 12 tickets left, if you could believe it. So if you want to attend the whole weekend with us in Vancouver, we have such an amazing lineup of experts coming in from all over the world to teach us and spend 3 days learning how to be better in relationship. So this is going to be our 3rd year in Vancouver at the Fairmont Waterfront. And it's just such an amazing weekend. And if you can't join us in person in Vancouver in April, you can join us virtually from anywhere in the world. You can tune in. And we have our host, Sean Galanos, this year is going to be hosting our virtual summit. So that's pretty exciting. In previous years, we haven't had a host for the virtual experience, and he's going to be hosting everybody for Friday and Saturday. So I look forward to seeing you there. I sure hope so. Kristen, you're joining from Calgary. Wonderful. Those of you that are joining us live, are you parents? And are you dealing with conflict with your partner? After reading this book this week, I was just remembering all of how hard it was to raise little ones. Now my daughters are quite a bit older, and I'm not dealing with conflict. But there's stuff that comes up when you are definitely dealing with kids of all ages with your partner, right? Potato Katies. Potato Katies. That's a cool name. So if you are watching this, Erin and Stephen Mitchell, can you please ask to join? And then I'll join you to the chat. So you just have to press the plus sign in the very bottom right to request to join. It looks like 2 little figures and a plus sign between them. So while we're waiting for them, maybe I'll talk about, oh, there we go. You've joined. So if you can request to join, if you can press the plus sign in the bottom right. There, you're on your way. I can see this happening. There, okay, good. It worked, we did it.
did it.
Hi.
Sorry for the late join.
It's okay. There's technical difficulties. It just happens all the time. It's all good. Oh, you have to turn your phone the other way. There we go.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it together right. We've never used Instagram before.
Oh yeah, right.
I'm joking.
Yeah, I know. You've got hundreds of thousands of followers. So thank you, Erin and Stephen, for joining us today and talking to all of our people that are joining us live and who are going to watch the recording. We're going to learn a lot about navigating conflict as parents.
Thank you so much for having us.
So, first question, and I'm going to be watching the chat for those of you that are joining us live. So please ask Erin and Stephen your questions. This is your opportunity. So how can we approach conversations about feeling tired or overwhelmed without turning it into a competition?
Why don't you take that one? I think one of the things that is important is to just oftentimes that conversation comes across as I'm more tired than you. And we say that because we want our partner to get how tired we are.
Right.
And so it starts out comparatively. And I think one of the ways to shift that is simply to say, I need to tell you something about how tired I'm feeling. It's really important to me. And because I feel so tired, I'm wondering if we can do something about it that would be like helpful. And again, what you're trying to describe your experience and then asking your partner, like, can we do something about that? You're not saying, I'm doing this, you're not doing that. I'm so tired because you're not like when you kind of take it to that level, I think it automatically sets a partner on the defensive.
Sure. I think that's good. I think I think that is the answer. I think another answer is just that when that is the theme, something needs to be addressed. If we're feeling like we're having to like battle and fight for your experience to be seen and known and understood or even wanted, something needs some tending to, I think. And what that is couple dependent. But typically it's like I don't feel like we're really understanding where we each are, or I'm not feeling like you're respecting where I am, or whatever the situation may be. But I think that's a great indicator that something does need to be addressed.
And I would say one other thing, sometimes we talk to couples about this too. A lot of times couples are really tired because their system, their family system, their work, school, whatever it might be, is so overloaded. It's just so full of stress. And sometimes we do ask couples, like, if you're both feeling really tired, like maybe you need to change your system altogether. Do you need to get do you need to get a new job? Do you need to move? Do you need to simplify or shift your system in a really drastic way? Now, I get that's a big deal. So I'm not telling everyone you're tired, you need to move, you need to drop everything. But I think sometimes you do have to consider, like, we have kids now. The way our life worked before that might not work the same way. Is there something that we need to change? Is there something kind of big that we need to do?
Taking some steps back and actually looking at things from a different perspective, a higher perspective. I like that. Yep. How do we navigate differing parenting styles without letting it create resentment between us? This is so common. This is one of your conflicts that you help people work through in your book.
It is a big deal. It's not the only thing we talk to couples about, but it's such a core piece of us. Like how we parent our kids matters. It's not like, oh, I don't really mind how you dice tomatoes. No big deal. You do it your way. I'll do it my way. Like, oh,
it matters how we talk to our kids when they're upset and showing a lot of, like, it's not just like, well, you do you and I'll do me. It's like, no, this is important.
Right. And it's really hard for those differences not to come between the partnership. So I do think it needs to be addressed. I think, as we say, to sort of almost any conflict even, but differences, understanding why these things are values to begin with matter. It just matters. So if we just tell our partner to stop, it's sort of like just telling our kids to stop whatever, fill in the behavior. It almost assures we're going to get that result, right? Like our kids are like, this behavior, this one right here, this one is the thing you want me to stop, and keep doing it over and over and over. but like there has to be some compassion and curiosity in these things. Like help me understand. Like, do you think this is an effective response to that behavior? I don't understand it. Like, help me understand where you're coming from. Where is this rooted? How is that a value? What do you see the outcome of that being? And then agreeing on some of those things, because sometimes when we work those things back, they make no sense. They really don't.
Well, I think parenting, the way we parent our kids is oftentimes born out of the way we were parented. And either
I would say
like that,
a lot of the time.
yeah, and either we want to do the same thing that happened for us, or we want to do something different than what happened for us. And I think a lot of times what that means, though, is you have two individuals acting as individuals in their parenting. And what parenting partners need to do is they need to say, how do we, and I think this gets to your values, like how do we want to parent our kids? What did you appreciate from what happened for you? What did you not like? This is what I appreciated. This is what I didn't like. And then like, how are we going to parent our kids together, creating like our parenting style and philosophy, as opposed to, I need you to be more like me, or I need you to be more like me. Like, you have to do that jointly.
I think the one thing I would add to that is very, 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 very often, that is me trying really hard not to say always, but one partner's done a lot of research. Like,
Yeah.
I've read the books, I've considered this, I've thought about it, I know this.
Yeah.
You haven't. Like, you don't have a leg to stand on in this conversation. And I think that has to be something that feels like a we for both partners.
You have to match each other's investment.
Absolutely.
So if your partner's done a lot of research on parenting, you better do a lot yourself. You can't just say like, well, that's just not what I think, or that's not how it was done for me. You have to match one another's effort. I think, and I think, and we talk about
at least respect it, right?
Yeah.
I think it feels like such mutual disrespect of values, of research, of thought, of intention, and these things really matter. So I do think sort of the simplified answer would be getting really deal of compassion as you enter these conversations, because they're usually pretty core. And we place a lot of importance on them, and we need to treat them with the reverence they deserve, and getting really serious about, though, like, okay, so we need to have an approach, not just, I love to say this, and by love to, I mean I don't at all. Like, I don't want to be the president of parenting. I don't want you just to like say okay to what I'm setting out for us. Like, I want this to be something we've agreed to, but I need you to have an informed opinion on this.
I mean, there's a lot of like, if you are going to act like I'm the president of parenting, then that means don't have a ton of opinions about like stuff you don't like. There has to be some consistency. And
Sure.
I think that's what gets confusing for parents sometimes.
Yeah. And in your book, Too Tired to Fight, there are scripts to help people through this. So
Sure.
It's What's the best way to bring up feeling disconnected without hurting my partner's feelings?
I love that. I mean, even that. I mean, I think typically the way people ask a question is a soft approach. Like, I don't know these people, right? And I don't know their relationship. But like, if I said to Stephen, like, I feel really disconnected and I'm worried to bring that up, or
because I don't want to hurt your feelings,
I don't want it to feel personal, or like I'm saying like you are disconnected, but like I miss us. It's usually a pretty good way. But and Stephen, over and over with couples we work with, even with us, like, clunky is okay. We all wish it looked really finessed and like, and then I'm going to say this and then you're going to say that. But usually it's like, I have something that feels awkward. Like, I don't really know what to say. It really matters to me. Is this a good time? It's not bad. It's actually really good, but I just don't know what to say.
Yes, I really like that. And this just makes me think of, these are skills that it's not just around parenting, right? Like, like I think about with my boyfriend, it's like, let's just say there's something I really want to talk to him about. It's like, okay, I'm going to take it like, this is how I'm feeling this. And it just, can we talk? And like being vulnerable and just
Mhm.
being like, this is where I'm at. And
Mhm.
this is the story that I'm telling myself about this. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
right?
That's exactly right. I
Yeah.
think the other thing, especially as you're talking about it like that, we can circle back. That did not go like I meant for it to go.
Mm.
I was trying to say I missed you. I ended up coming out and saying like you seem really withdrawn. Like I can see how those are not the same thing. Like
Oh,
I
yeah.
that was the wrong way to start. But like I see that now. Like we can circle back.
Yeah.
It just, and honestly, we probably need to circle back. And then opposite too, right? Like if Steven's the one saying that to me, like, hey, I took that personally. That wasn't personal. Like
Mhm.
I don't, you were trying to say you miss me and you want more connection. That's a good thing. I'm sorry I heard that the wrong way. Things
Yeah.
like
Sorry, I was
that.
defensive.
Yeah, like
Practice,
girl,
practice, right?
Mhm.
It's okay.
right.
What's the best way to suggest therapy or counseling without making it seem like we're in trouble?
So I think it's one of the ways you can do that is to express the hope that you have. So you know what, like uh, I want our relationship to be strong and healthy, and I think we have a lot of really amazing, awesome things happening already. Um, I I would like to keep working towards that. I'd like to keep moving towards that. I think it could be helpful for us to talk about some of this with someone so that we can keep having a great relationship. And I think if you can, and granted, that might not work. Someone still might feel resistant, but I think the idea of talk about the hope, talk about what you're excited about, talk about what you want, not about like, you know what, our relationship is so awful right now, we need to go get some help. No one feels invited or motivated to go do it. But if you cast a vision for like, this is what I love about us and this is what I hope for, I think it can feel really different.
I think the other thing, and I mean, to be very honest, in our own, so we're married 17 years
Almost.
this year. We will
Yeah.
be 17. And throughout our years, there have been different moments where each of us suggested it at different times. Like, we should talk about this. Like, we seem like
Yeah.
this feels like a stuck place, or like, honestly, some pretty difficult things have happened in our family life. Like, we should just go and make sure we're being nurtured through this, like, and we're like, processing like we want. Um, Never has the other one of us been like, yes, that is a good idea. Every time it's like, I think we're okay. We just got to get through it. Whoever's the one, like, I mean, that seems really expensive. That's
Yeah.
like, when do we have time for that? It feels like a big thing to say. But I think the other thought is that, like, of course it's not a good time. Of course it's inconvenient. Of course it costs money. Also, I don't want to wait until we're in a bad place. Like more of like that preventative. Like I want to make sure we're on the same page. I'd like to make sure we don't get to the place where we're going because of a problem. Those types of things. But I do think it's very common. I just want to like
for one partner to be resistant and put up all the reasons, even with two
Yeah.
therapists talking like that.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
just a really like, whoa, because it does have this sort of social script of something's wrong.
Or also, it just feels hard. Like,
Yeah, it's
oh
vulnerable.
man, like
Yes.
man, that sounds like, yeah, vulnerable. That sounds like a lot of effort that I already feel pretty depleted. Like I'm gonna go, talk to somebody. And I think that's another part of it where it's just like, oftentimes like a lot of people walk through life overwhelmed and that feels like another thing that can be overwhelming, and I do think a little twist on that to what you were saying from a preventative standpoint, like, yeah, it's overwhelming, but in a sense, you know let's talk about it now rather than it being like overwhelming in a way that neither one of us want.
I think the other thing, in any time there's a potential for a no response, is validating the no. Typically we have a no because we saw our parents go to counseling and it didn't work, or we saw our friends do it, or we've done it before and it was absolutely pointless.
Yeah.
So you say like,
You have a bad experience.
yeah, I think most of us know somebody. I've had some really not productive
Oh
counseling
yeah, me
sessions.
too. I've
Right.
been through like 3 or 4 counselors. It was like, that wasn't a good fit.
That
That's
was
definitely
not a good fit. Not a good
Right.
fit. And that makes sense. So I think trying to bulldoze through someone's real and true experience of, but it didn't work. Like, oh, it seems like we need a better fit, or like, let's research together. What would be a better fit? Who, whatever, but validating the no. I get why you wouldn't want to, rather than like, you should want to, like, don't.
Yeah, that's great. Honestly, I love it. How do I ask for more intimacy without making it feel like I'm pressuring my partner? Or just like if you were like you're just like I'm not you want more intimacy. Okay? How are you going to approach that in the best most loving way?
I think, and I hope, well, I know we're probably going to start to sound like a broken record here, but I think getting really curious about like what it is you're after. What are you wanting? Like, what does the intimacy mean to you? Why is your partner a no?
Well, yeah,
what does it mean to them?
Because intimacy, like, there's lots of levels. Like, oftentimes people are like, oh, you just mean sex, or are you talking about, well, I just want to have more sex, or are you talking about, you know what, I just want to have more times where we're like looking at each other, connecting and talking and hearing about each other, like,
which may lead to the next.
Well, yeah, which absolutely, yeah, could,
yeah,
wouldn't that be great? Like, but being, I think, very clear about what you mean by that word can be very helpful. Because
defining the terms.
Oftentimes people say, I want more intimacy in a partnered relationship, and they immediately think you're saying you want more sex, and either I don't feel like I'm having enough sex, or I don't want to have more sex than we're having, and they both think they're having a conversation where everyone understands, and they're not, because really, I think oftentimes when people say intimacy, they're just like, I'd like to feel closer to you. And yes, is sex a part of that? Absolutely. But there's so many other things that means too.
And then I think there has to be the flip side of like, hey, you seem really content with where our intimacy is. I feel like I'm wanting more. What's going on for you? Like, here's what's going on for me. But there's always a story happening in that other partner. So like, like we work a lot with parents, not exclusively, but a lot. And like a new parent, it can be the very last thing on their list of things to do. And so if I feel like, if I'm like just like touched out, totally spent, like, and I feel like Steven is asking me like, hey, can we talk? Because really I'm like, what? Because I know he wants to have sex. I'm gonna be like, no. Like, no. And I'm stopping that off because I've made all these assumptions about what that's gonna be. But it can be like, what do you mean? And like, of course that's something I want again, but I'm tired, I'm whatever. Or a lot of times it happens with grief or work stress. Libidos change with all of these massive changes in a life, and being really clear about, it's not you. I still love you, I want to connect with you. My brain is absolutely occupied with this big project I have at work, or with this really difficult time I'm having with my sister, or whatever. But explaining, and we assume our partner knows that because they know about the project, or they know, but like, oh, it's hard to connect those dots sometimes, and being really clear.
Right.
And I think there's always, again, as we said too, like with any of these difficult conversations, I think you can always lead with, hey, I want to talk about something that I know we both probably don't want to talk about. And that, like, when I say the word, it's going to feel like, oh no, here we go again. Can we just not, I don't want that to happen. I just want to have a conversation about something that feels important. And I'd like to hear what you think about it too, and why it's important to you. But let's both realize, like, we're both initially going to be like, or, oh no, here we go. Here it is. I'd like to talk about our intimacy. And then be like, oh, see, it happened for you, didn't it? Right?
You're dreading it.
Let's just pass over it, and let's see if we can have this in a different way. And I think just even doing those kinds of things can, hopefully feel a little more playful around it, but also at least prep your partners, because I think a lot of times partners just feel surprised by that. They're like, oh, I wasn't ready to have this conversation.
Sure.
So,
okay. What can we do to shift from keeping score to feeling like a team in our parenting partnership?
That's great. I think the reason we keep score matters. So for whatever it is that makes you feel like you need to keep score. So I can give some like common examples, but that doesn't mean that that's the example the person asking means. But typically we keep score when we're feeling undervalued. So,
You're undervalued,
yeah,
underappreciated.
unseen, completely invisible. So like we start saying like I am doing a lot. And if Steven, is like, hey, I changed the laundry, like, oh neat, want a gold star? Like that's probably an indicator that I feel like, oh, maybe I am not feeling valued or seen or appreciated for all the things I'm doing. And that's the conversation to have.
And then the conversation is, you know what, I've noticed that there's some areas kind of in our day-to-day life and stuff where I feel undervalued. I would like to tell you about those, but I'd also like to hear if there's places where you feel undervalued too.
Yes.
Could we have that kind of conversation? And then you're into it.
I think almost, oh man, again, I'm trying not to say always, but I think when we start minimizing our partner's experience, input, like the things they're doing, it's because we feel like they're doing that to us. Which doesn't excuse it. Explanations are never excuses. I don't mean it like that at all. But it can be the indicator of, oh, like this is what we need to be talking about. Like we're keeping score. That probably means there are some things we are missing about each other's experiences right now. Like, let's have that talk.
Yeah, that's a great, I feel like I'm keeping score. I think that usually means this.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think it helps to lead with, I think I'm keeping score, rather than you're undervaluing me.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of, yes, it is. It's, I interviewed Zach Brittle and Laura Heck weeks ago, and they have, it's one of their worksheets is a list of, it's like all the mental load things that you're doing, all the physical things you're doing around the house, if you've got a job outside the house, and like even just to sit down with your partner and be like, because sometimes it's easy to be in that place of like, I'm doing it all. Like you walk in, like, I know you're working all day, but then you come in this door, you see all these things that I'm doing. And then it's like, you're not recognizing your other partner is doing so much too, but you're not seeing that. And like, I know that's keeping score because you're not seeing. So there's ways that you can go through it. Right?
There are, that's a super productive way, I think, to like list it out, not as a competition, but just to list it out so we actually know what we're talking about. Because maybe Erin and I did this about our business. We listed out all of our tasks and all that we're doing, and we both kind of realized like, oh, we're working about the same amount. Oh, because we're like, wow, because it didn't feel that way.
Oh, well, there you go. You didn't feel that there was an equity.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think within each of those things too, because we're very much like things don't have to be 50-50.
No.
I don't think that's reasonable. And what 50-50 means is always changing. And, there are things that Stephen does that I know nothing about. And we all like to joke about it. Our kids make jokes about it. And there are things I do that Stephen knows nothing about. Yeah. And for us to try to switch those for the sake of equity would be so exhausting. You don't need to do that, but what you do need to feel is appreciated and valued. And if you do feel like you're doing more, that needs to be addressed. Like when it starts to feel like, what is happening? We go back to that scorekeeping thing. I think to your point, like listing it out can be very helpful. I think that can feel like an accusation. I think that is just depending on how that's approached and the feel of that. But I think it does matter. And it does matter to our connection. It matters to our resentment. It matters to our longevity.
Oh, definitely.
To feel like we're able to share these things. And I think that's the big indicator too. Do I feel like this will be a productive conversation and worthwhile? Yes. Oh, great. No? Why not? Like, what's the thought about that? Like, why would that lead to conflict?
Good. We have time for one more question.
Okay.
What are some ways to show appreciation for each other when we're both running on empty? So you're both completely exhausted and you're like, oh God, how are we even going to even have a connection, right? Where you're just like, I'm too tired.
Right. Well, I think that, and I'm not trying to cop out here, but I think that is really couple specific. And I think typically partners tend to do for their partner what they wish was being done to them or for them. Like we tend to love our partner, and like I tend to like, so I mean, this is a sort of a classic example for us, but when Stephen was doing his research for his PhD, I would like make a meal and bring it to him, because that's like, if someone made me a meal in the middle of my day or like brought me a coffee, like you're my new favorite person. That's all I need. Someone to have planned and prepared a
Yes.
meal.
Love
Yes.
to food. I'm like that. I'm totally that person. Yeah.
Yes, like, oh, that's me. And so I was doing this to Steven, and a couple weeks later, I was like, I don't feel like you're really loving it in the way I expected you would. And he was like, honestly, it's an interruption. And I'm like, how dare you? And that he's allowed to feel like that, obviously. Like that's his experience. Like, oh, like, well, what would be meaningful? Like, you know, it would be meaningful and whatever. But I think it's to ask that. What would be meaningful? Steven makes my coffee every single morning. And that is because I don't want to wake up that extra 5 minutes early. I don't want to do like that. That speaks to a lot of levels of love and care for me.
Yes. And it's something that, so it's like understanding what is the ways that they would feel the most appreciated.
Yeah, that
and care
2 minutes.
and love. It could be the smallest things, but like knowing that those things from your partner, not just assuming that, okay, I'm doing these things because it's showing you appreciation.
I would like it.
Yeah, because if I made Steven's coffee, he'd be like, that's not how I make my coffee. Like, don't do that. There, you know, and that's not, I maybe mischaracterized you that, but like that would not feel like care and love to him. It would be like, no, thank you. I make my own coffee the way I like my coffee. So I think it is little things. It's notes. It's those little small acts that mean something to your partner.
It means you know them. It means you know who they are and you know what they like and love. And that is why it's a little bit variable. But I do think, like a rule of thumb, just try to do one of those things a day.
It's little things that just pile up, right? The acts of kindness.
Just connection stacks up or connection stacks up. You've got a choice.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I really like that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Erin and Steven Mitchell, for being with us today and for answering all these questions. And I hope everybody picks up your book and it's just and reads it, because there's a lot of goodness in it. So thank you.
Appreciate it.
Enjoy your day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.